Welcome to the Accidental Experts podcast. I'm your host, Bryce Hamilton. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and a child and family therapist. I have been in practice for over 15 years, and I'm also a mom of four. So I know the challenges both professionally and personally. I'm so glad that you're here today to grow your parenting toolbox. Please come as you are and be ready to learn. My goal is to make you the accidental expert so that you can raise healthy humans. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm so glad you're with us today. So today we have a kindergarten teacher, and she has been teaching for over 10 years. And her name is Shawna Hake, and she is going to talk to us about how to know if our kids are ready for kindergarten and also just getting them ready for kindergarten. This is such a long process, and I don't know if you sent a kid to kindergarten before, but it can be really nerve-wracking. So we're going to talk to Shawna about how to get ready as parents, but also how to help our kids get ready. With that, let's get to Shawna.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So this really important topic of kindergarten readiness. So when we talk about kindergarten readiness, what does this even mean? What is kindergarten readiness?
I mean, just basically being ready to come to school. You're just being ready to drop your kids off at kindergarten and start the whole elementary school experience.
Yeah, because it's a lot. And I think kindergarten is different now than it used to be back when parents were in kindergarten. So it's so important that we kind of talk to parents about what this is like. And it's also anxiety provoking for parents. I know that for me, I felt like I know all the things that my kids should be doing in preparation for kindergarten, but I was still nervous. Were you nervous when you dropped your kids off at kindergarten?
Kind of, but they came to the school I teach at, so it wasn't as scary for me just because they were going to be right next door. But it was scary because it's a whole new experience, and it's going to be a big step for them.
Yeah, it's a big transition and lots of expectations. And sometimes they can come with difficulties transitioning back out of kindergarten, right? So kindergarten is draining for those kids. I mean, my kids were exhausted for the first month of school. They would come home and fall asleep on the couch because they were so tired from all the expectations in school. Did
Yes,
your
I
kids do
tell
anything crazy like
I
that?
mean, my kids, they yes and no. I mean, I think I knew what to expect, so it wasn't as jolting to me, I guess. But I always tell my parents that are like back to school night, expect your kids to be jerks until like October at home. Totally normal. They're so exhausted. They give it their all, like being their best at school. And then at home, they just release. And so I've told all of them it's pretty normal. And I've had several parents tell me, you're right. They are not very nice. And then come around October, they're like, we have them back.
Yay. Yes. Yeah. It's good to set these expectations. So, when we talk about what skills or behaviors do you think help a kid be ready for kindergarten? What kind of things do you like kids? Obviously, there's going to be kids that come in that are just the way that they are, exactly that way, right? But sometimes, based on when our kid is born, we have some choice in terms of do we send them this year or do we wait? So, what kind of behaviors and skills are you looking for that help kindergartners be ready for kindergarten?
Yeah, so I think more social skills. I can meet them where they're at academically. That is just par for the course. Kids come from all different backgrounds, all different upbringings, and I expect that I can meet them where they're at. But if they have the social skills and the like self-help skills is kind of what we're looking for. So like using the bathroom by themselves, completing two-step directions. So like say you would say, take your socks off and go put them in your laundry basket for them to be able to do that without your help. Um, Controlling your emotions without a tantrum. I mean, they're still going to throw fits occasionally, but if that is something that is happening often, they're likely not ready. I have one that's turning 5 in July, and I'm not sending him because socially he is not ready. So
Yeah.
just kind of more socially than academically, I would say, to look for when you're thinking about sending them or not sending them.
Yeah. Well, and to provide some insight for parents, as a therapist, I see kids and when they're younger for their grade, they tend to continue to struggle socially, even if they make it through kindergarten, which they will, regardless of how they're showing up, they're going to make it through. And but when they get to be, 10 and the rest of their classmates are 11, sometimes it's a really big gap, right? In terms of their emotional awareness and ability to navigate those things. So it's something to consider. Obviously, we're not going to postpone sending a kid who is in, December, January, February time, even if we might want to. Academically, it's good to get them in there. But for those kids that we have choices on, it makes sense if they're not able to regulate, right? Or their social skills are kind of behind, that we spend that time the year until they would start kindergarten working on those things to get them ready.
For sure. And
Absolutely. Okay.
there's
Yeah.
even research behind that, that if they aren't ready, it's going to kind of follow them academically all the way through high school. So it's kind of a big deal, but
Yeah.
you know your kids and you kind of know in the back of your
Mhm.
mind if they're ready or not.
Yeah. Yeah, I have kids kind of since I have 4. The oldest, he's a February birthday, so there wasn't any choice. We just went even though I would have chosen to hold him back. I would have waited a year. I think that would have helped him. And then the next one is a fall birthday, so she just automatically stayed back. And then I had a summer birthday, and so we were on the like opportunity to choose, but we chose to hold her back um, to delay starting kindergarten. And then the little one we haven't decided yet, but he is a January birthday. So I guess he'll just go when he goes. But yeah, so it's like when they're born matters, but it's also like how ready they are because I've seen kids born in July, August, and they're ready.
Oh, for
They're
sure.
going to turn 5 right before kindergarten starts. But then there's other kids where it's like, yes, they just turned 5, but like they need a whole year of growth that would really help them long term. So, what do you think parents can do before this age of 5 to help their kids prepare for kindergarten?
So I know that you're gonna get harped on this in elementary school too, all through elementary school, to read to your kiddos daily. I mean, just them having that gives them those executive functioning skills of being able to listen, and they're also gaining so much for their literacy skills when you read to them daily. Like I said, to give them multi-step directions and see if they can follow through with them on their own, just like with your daily thing, just around like bath time or dinner time, just kind of incorporate that into everyday tasks instead of doing everything for them. Um, they can practice patience. So I know this one's really hard. If you're talking to another adult, tell your kid what you expect from them because they are not going to be able to get an adult's attention all the time at school because there are so many other kids. So practicing patience, saying their first and their last name so that they can tell an adult who they are, and then attempting to write their name. Most kindergarten teachers don't really expect them to fully be able to do that at the beginning of the year, but it is something that we work on. So practicing that would help. Um, a big one is to tell an adult if something is wrong. We have so many kids that will have an accident because they just didn't speak up that they had to go to the bathroom. So being able to advocate for themselves, telling them something is wrong or if they need something, just to be able to get their basic needs met, basically. They need to know their parent's name or their caretaker's name, and then just kind of how to take care of materials that don't belong to them, I would say are some things that families can work on at home.
Yeah, those are great things because I think those are things that we want for our kids anyways. We want to know them to know what our names are and also, like it's cool if they know their phone number and where they live. Like those are great things, but like just the basics of who your grown-ups are, who you are, and then
Right.
also being able to like wait for things because that's so hard to wait. But in kindergarten, that's a lot of what you're doing. You're learning how to practice patience
For sure.
and silence, like in the hallways, the like lining up part. Like I always laugh at kindergarten classrooms at the beginning of the year. It's like herding cats,
It is.
right? Like,
But then by like December, we look the best in the whole school. So
oh, no
they catch
doubt.
on so quickly.
Yes, it's awesome. So those are great ideas. And especially the reading. We just know that part of reading and learning how to read is also being able to be read to, right? That's an important part of hearing how words sound, right? And that's also, you guys are working on phonics in kindergarten. And so that's such an important piece to just be reiterating those things and the listening part of whether
So,
it's following directions or understanding a story.
and a big
Yeah.
one is at least at the school that I teach at, we have automatic flushing toilets. So this isn't something parents really think about, but they're really scary to some kids. So exposing them like Target or wherever to the public restrooms where the where it flushes automatically. If it's little boys, show them urinals because sometimes they have no idea how to use those. So the bathroom ends up being a bigger deal than you would expect it to be just because it's kind of a scary new situation for them.
Hmm. Yeah, that's so funny because I do think that the bathroom and the lunchroom seem to be the places that need a lot of attention, especially early on. So, with that, let's talk about when it is time for our kid to start kindergarten. What can we do, or how can parents help to prepare for that transition? Because it is kind of a hard transition. So, you're talking about these skills that they can have or behaviors that they can do. What else can we do to help our kids prepare?
I think one of the biggest things is getting into a solid routine before school starts and having a reasonable bedtime. I've had so many kids come in that are just overly exhausted and they just are not capable of learning when they don't have the sleep. So I think getting them into that routine and to bed is really going to be a big deal. And really don't dwell on the fact that it's coming too much because the more that you are dwelling on it and show your emotions about it, your kids are going to pick up on that and it just makes it harder for them. So just kind of let it be a natural transition into it. And then I would say if you live near the school, which I think most people do, you can go up to play on the playground. You might meet some new friends that are also going to be at school. Um, and then just maybe do a practice run with like lunch because lunch, like you said, the lunchroom is it's kind of a hard transition too. They get about 30 minutes to eat and clean up and get lined up to go. So like if they're bringing their home lunch, have them practice opening, unzipping it, sitting down, putting their straw in their drink, opening the packaging, just making sure that they can do that with a timer so that they can be independent at it and feel confident going into kindergarten.
Well, and it stinks when you're hungry the rest of the day because you weren't able to get stuff opened, right? Like I know that my daughter was telling me this last year. She was like, "Oh yeah, I open all of these packages for my friends sometimes," and she was in first grade, and it made me laugh though because I was like, "That's really nice of her," but like she said, it's because we want to get done. Like I don't want my friends to be hungry, and I was like, "That's so thoughtful," but like also that learning how to open the package, like chip bags or whatever it is that you're sending, if it's not just one click, right, of opening a box, that maybe you're teaching them how to do that. And one other thing that I like that at my kids' school, the principal talks about having them, like they're going to go through the lunch line, being able to practice serving themselves because there's not always somebody there to help them like scoop the food or whatever. And so like being able to do that is such an important thing. And we don't often think about that as parents, like we probably serve our kids plates. And so doing like family style is definitely something that helps them to be more independent.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So what do parents need to know about kindergarten and what it's like now versus when we were kids? And what type of expectations are on kids these days in kindergarten?
Yeah, so I would say kindergarten is more like what first grade was when we were growing up, or at least I don't know if that shows my age, but they learn to read and they can like read, add, subtract by the time that they leave kindergarten. So academically, it is much more demanding than what we did when we were kids. I mean, I know I went to just half day kindergarten. And so there was no way we were going to get all of that in. So it's a lot more structured too than preschool or when we were in school and kindergarten. There are certain amounts of time that have to be allocated toward reading, toward math, toward science that you have to fit in your certain amount of time for those. So there is less play, unfortunately. I'd say in my classroom, at least at the beginning of the school year, we play a lot more, and then it starts to taper off into much more academic as the year goes on. So it's just a lot more structured and real school by kindergarten. It's not just playing all day. I know so many people think kindergarten, oh, it's so fun, it's just playing, but it really is a lot more structured now. And then the kids, um, they've got quite a few expectations for being 5. First of all, like using the bathroom independently, like we talked about, teachers aren't allowed to help them in the restroom, and that's really hard for some of them. So making sure that they can wipe themselves, making sure they can button their own pants if they wear button pants, being able to wash their hands on their own. Um, they hopefully can put on their jackets by themselves and take them off. I mean, there's 20 to 24 kids in our classrooms now, and most of the time it's just one teacher. There are paras in and out and helpers in and out, but a majority of the time it's just one person. So being able to be somewhat independent is very helpful. Just being able to recognize their first and last name, not their nickname, is so my son has a shorter version of his name and a longer version. So I want to make sure that he knows both so that if he's called on by either, he knows who they're talking to. Some other expectations are that they're able to hold a pencil when they come to kindergarten, able to start to try to write their name, trace lines, letters, shapes, color, or at least start to color a picture, completing two-step directions, like I said, taking turns, which is hard. We obviously work on that all the way through kindergarten, those social skills, but being able to and willing to take turns is very helpful and expected of them somewhat. And then, like I said, complete adult tasks or complete tasks without adult assistance.
Yeah. Well, and there's so many transitions in kindergarten, right? Like you're not just staying in that room all day. You're going to specials, you're going to library, you're going to lunchroom, you're going to recess. And so being able to transition through those things, like practicing those transitions is hard, but also really important because
For sure.
it,
Even within the classroom, I mean,
mhm,
we transition from doing one thing, like being able to put away this, even if you don't really feel like you're quite done with it,
mhm.
you have to transition on. So that is another thing that kids are expected to do. So it would be another great thing to work on, even if they're not done with their coloring page. Okay, we can finish it later, but right now we're going to move on to whatever it is next. That because kids are expected to just kind of what we call follow the group plan.
Yeah. Which can be so hard for so many kids, right? It's like, no, I just want to finish coloring this one thing. And
Yes,
then the teacher's like, no, we're done, right? Like, please put that away and put it in your, cubby or whatever it is. And that kid can have a meltdown, right? And so just
for sure.
helping our kid to navigate through that. I often see kids in kindergarten like struggling with that. And also like the transitions. I think something that we haven't mentioned that I think is helpful is like if you have a kid that is particularly attached to one parent, then it's often my suggestion is to not have that parent do drop off because it is really hard to leave your parents, especially at the beginning of the year when you're very connected to them and you're nervous about going to school. Even if you've been there before, like it can still be nerve wracking, but then to leave the parent that maybe is like your comfort person. So it's like if grandparents can drop off or, another neighborhood family that's going, right? And I think that helps too, but it's hard for us as parents because we want to be there and we want them to know that we love them and we support them. And so I know that that can be hard and it doesn't have to be for long. A lot of times kids transition out of that and are able to do that more easily once they get into the routine and feel comfortable in their environment. But initially, being aware, like, if your kid's gonna have trouble with that transition, if they're, like, grabbing onto your leg when you drop them off at preschool, right? Like, your kid's probably gonna also do that, and so then, I don't know about other parents, but, like, at my kid's school, the, drop-off pickup line is a very, quick process, and they do
It
not
is.
want you there very long. So
Right.
so if you're
So if
hanging
your
out
kid
yeah.
is crying, I would say, like, if the principal or the counselor or whoever is on duty is trying to help you peel your kid off of you, let them, because they
Mhm.
really do stop crying within the, like, first few minutes of being in the classroom. It does not take them long usually to stop once they're distracted with something else and fun. I promise they're not sad all day long. So it's really hard to make your kid peel away from you, but it's really a quick process once they are distracted and into something new.
Yeah, and rest assured that if it is not, they will contact you. They're not
First,
going to just, leave that in that place. They are gonna make sure that they're able to support your kid, but it is hard to have your kid kind of pulled out of your car. Like, I have
yeah.
definitely that happened to me. And I'm like, "Okay, I know I just have to sit here and be like, 'You're good. This is fun. You're gonna have a great day,'" right? Like, trying to stay supportive in that, but it is hard. Okay, so How do you manage individual differences in the readiness factor for kids starting kindergarten? Because you're going to start with the kids and they're going to be all over the place potentially, right? And so, how do you manage that as a teacher?
They are always all over the place. Some can come in reading, and others have never seen a pair of scissors in their lives. So I just kind of manage it by expecting it, really. I know they're going to come in on all different levels, and a lot of times we'll have different activities. So, like the kids who can read, they can go to a center and kind of get what they need there, where I can work individually with the kids that need a little bit more help. But a lot of times it shows other kids, even like the kid that comes in knowing a lot of other things, it kind of gives them a little bit of perspective in the world, like, oh, not everybody can do what I can do. And they a lot of times end up becoming helpers to these
Mhm.
kids that haven't been as exposed. And so it just becomes a little community where everybody kind of helps each other out, and they're just, those differences are really expected. And academically, that's what I'm there for. That is what I signed up for. I signed up to meet your kid where they are. So the teacher is just going to kind of meet your kid where they are, whether they know all their letters, whether they don't know any letters yet. It's all normal. It's very
Yeah.
expected.
Yeah. And I think that's hard, but it's also good to know that our teachers are prepared for this because sometimes we feel a lot of pressure on ourselves to also have our kids at a certain place. And so we're pushing our kids. And so maybe it's okay for us to take, a calmer approach to that so that maybe it's not stressing our kids out or ourselves, right? And
Absolutely.
knowing that teachers are ready to help us.
Because sometimes they just truly aren't developmentally ready to have that skill yet. And it'll come, it does. And if it doesn't, there's a team of people at school that can help out with getting you on the right track and getting the tools that you might need to help your kid with whatever they are struggling with.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we've done a special education podcast before. So if you're curious about special ed, please check that out. But I think, yeah, we have teams of people. Teachers want their kids to succeed, right? And I think a lot about all of the support that I got during my academic years and teachers believing in you and wanting you to succeed and believing in your abilities. Like that feels so good. And most teachers go into it for that exact reason. They want to support kids.
Absolutely. We are all on the same team. Like parents, teachers, we just want to see our kids happy, healthy, successful is really like the big goal for parents and teachers.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as we're talking about this kindergarten readiness, I want to kind of step back and go back to what are some of the challenges that you see with kids who are not ready for kindergarten? So, maybe they're, 4 the day they walk in, and then their birthday falls in that grace period of, yes, you can start kindergarten. Or maybe they're 5, but they're a summer, early fall birthday, and they could stay back. Like, what do you see are some of the complications of starting kindergarten before a kid's ready?
Truly, it just becomes really overwhelming for the
Mhm.
kiddo. They're in an environment where they're kind of in over their heads, and they're expected to do these things that they're just not quite ready for yet. So a lot of times we'll end up seeing behavior issues because they're just developmentally not quite ready to do what they're being pushed to do. And then that's hard on the teacher and the kid and the parents. It's just hard on everyone. It becomes really overwhelming, I would say.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes it can make kids not like school. And I
For
think
sure.
that is such a lost opportunity. Not that it can't get back the love for school, but I think when you started off in a place where it's really negative, it's kind of hard to overcome that part. And as I was a kid who has a summer birthday, and so I didn't go to kindergarten until I was 6, but I was always the oldest in my class. I wasn't the oldest, but one of the older kids. And I was never sad about being 16 first or being 18 first. And those are the times where it seems to really matter. And so I've only ever heard kids complain about being the youngest. Years ago, I had a teenager who was complaining and she was like, I wish my parents would have held me back because everybody in my grade can drive except for me. And I was like, yes, that's so funny, but also your birthday is in the spring, so that would not have happened, but it was like it was just funny because of, the thought of that, like, I wish they would have held me back, and so we definitely don't want our kids feeling that way of, like, "This is so hard, I wish I would have had more time," or to feel like you're the youngest, but, like, somebody's gonna be the youngest, But being thoughtful about your particular kid and what that looks like, and are they going to be able to sit in their seat? Are they going to be able to follow directions? And is that going to improve their thought of themselves, right? Or are they going to leave school feeling like I'm a bad kid or I'm not doing anything right because they're getting lots of redirects?
And I've never had a parent once tell me that they regret not sending their kid. I've talked to several parents that have said, I really wish that I would have held them out of school for a year, but the opposite, where they've never ever told me, I really wish I could have sent them this year.
Yep,
So
me either.
kind of
Yep.
some perspective there.
Yeah, me either. And the kids, right? So everybody seems fine with where they are when that is the dynamic. Okay, so what are the biggest pieces of advice that you have for parents with children going into kindergarten?
It's hard for everybody. All the parents are struggling. So just take a deep breath, try to wait to cry until you're in the parking lot so your kids can be successful without you and they know that they're in good hands. Um, Give your kids some independence. I know that it's hard to let them do things on their own when the kids will rise to the expectation and they really are happy to be the big kids. So giving them that independence before kindergarten starts so they're set up for success. And then again, the teacher is on your side. There may be hard conversations that we have to have as a team, and it's not coming out of a place of we don't like your child or we we just want a certain thing. It is typically just because we want your kid to be successful. So just remember that if you're ever having a hard conversation with a teacher, most teachers are typically on the same side as you. You're on the same team.
Yeah, that's such good advice. Thank you, Shawna, so much for coming today to talk to us about are kids ready and how to get them ready for kindergarten.
Of course.
Thanks again, Shawna. That was all really good information. I hope that that was helpful information for you guys to kind of metabolize and to process to see, is your kiddo ready for kindergarten? There's so many expectations for kindergarten and so many joys and so much that transforms from the beginning of kindergarten to the end. It's such an amazing journey, but just being aware as parents of what our kids are getting ready to walk into is also helpful for us to support them in the process. With that, I will say thank you so much for your time today. Please subscribe and rate us. Also follow us on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, and keep the emails coming with your topic suggestion requests to accidentalexperts@gmail.com. Have a wonderful day. Some words from our legal team.
The information presented in this podcast is not intended or implied to be a substitute for appropriate professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment. All content, including text, graphics, images, and information contained on or available through this podcast, is for general information purposes only. This podcast makes no representations and assumes no responsibility for the accuracy or information on or available through this podcast, and such information is subject to change without notice. You are encouraged to confirm any information obtained through this program with other sources and review all information regarding any condition or treatment with the appropriate professionals.
What we're saying is, yes, I am a real therapist, but I'm not your therapist.